And we're back. Okay. I want to welcome everybody once again, and hopefully we'll have a few more people coming in here as well. Um, what I'm going to do is there is a PDF that's a part of this. I'm just going to drop it in the chat and make it available to you. So that should be processing now very shortly. Anyone who's listening to this on YouTube, I will provide the Google Documents link to it, maybe the PDF. We'll go from there. But what this is about is this was inspired when someone was talking about the whole idea of political conversion, religious conversion, and how about people make dramatic changes. And ultimately, what happens at the end of the change is they look back on what they used to believe and they feel embarrassed. And
Hmm.
I've used that a little bit, but it was really well articulated in that. So I asked myself, how can we use that? I'm going to call it benign embarrassment to help make someone complete a change. And just for the sake of us being hypnotists and examples, we'll talk about quitting smoking. Um, so, oh yeah, everyone mute themselves. There we go. You're muted now. Okay, great. I heard some throat clearing, so this is good. All right. So, um, years ago, I used to smoke, and I quit smoking. And how I quit was, even though smoking provided for me a comfort, I also didn't want to be a smoker anymore. And what I realized is that that alone was enough, even though I might have wanted a cigarette. When I would remind myself I'm not that person anymore, it gave me enough strength to start to see myself differently. And so in that moment, it's not just changing a habit, but changing how you see yourselves. Now, this is a story I often tell people when I'm working with them. Um, and to introduce this feeling of benign guilt, I want to make a very clear distinction. We're not talking let me rephrase that. It's not benign guilt, it's benign embarrassment. It's a strong distinction, different from shame and different from guilt. Think of the stupidest things you did when you were young and you realize how silly it was. Think of people you know who have a tattoo that they wish they didn't have anymore and they realize that was not me and my best decision making skills at the moment. It's just it's a benign sense of embarrassment about who they were. And the whole purpose of this is to help the client, the person you're working with, start to disidentify from that old version of themselves. So the way that I do this first, just really conversationally. Um, with I want to emphasize, I don't want people to feel guilty or I don't want to feel shamed. I just want you to think back on silly decisions you did. And I give examples like, remember when you got into that car that wasn't yours, or you did that thing with that friend of yours you kept secret. Just vague enough that people fill in the blank. And you realize you would not do that again. Well, what would it be like if once we make this change, once we help you free from this want of a cigarette, for example, that's how you start to look at yourself as a smoker. And then I absolutely just drop it. I leave it from there. So I don't want to emphasize a huge amount of embarrassment or a huge amount of guilt. I just want to plant it in their mind. And so it starts to help create a bit of cognitive dissonance between themselves and this behavior that they have. Um, and some of this, depending on the time you have and the quality of conversation you're having, you can you can have them engage in conversations about the stupid things they did and realize, yeah, I would not do that again. And I feel a little embarrassed that I used to do it. So now once that's in place, uh, we do the hypnosis process. Now I have a hypnosis process. It gets a very good result on the first session so that people feel a sense of freedom, a sense of ease from any want or desire of smoking. And that's just the start. And it's also why I have more than one session that follows. But in that hypnosis session, I seed it very lightly with this idea of feeling slightly embarrassed that you ever held on to this habit. And a good metaphor that can be used is you've all had this old coat that you've worn a long time and it served you really well. And then when you take it off, you realize it smells like body odor. It smells like smoke. It smells like all the things you've been around. And when you take it off, even though it was comfortable, it's a relief to realize you don't have to put that on anymore. And you realize you really, with that coat in that condition, you would not go back to it without making some major changes. And that starts the metaphor of getting rid of of introducing this sense of embarrassment. So, and then I would introduce in the hypnosis session just a non-lingering sort of subtle pass about briefly mention how it was sort of embarrassing to have ever been a smoker. You might notice just in passing, it feels silly. That's a word you use. You might feel mildly amused. You might feel a little bit embarrassed to having done that behavior. And again, then you let it go. Most of the effort that I have, that I put into the first session is really about mostly just what's called solving the problem, which is helping them create a sense of freedom or a sense of strength. The cigarettes don't even matter for that moment. And often that will be enough. But then every session afterwards, I'll start returning to the idea of no longer being that person that they were. And so they now have a sense of distance from that old behavior. And I will say it feels faint and distant and far away. It may even feel like someone else's memory. And then I would also add again, and even now when you think about it, it's a little embarrassing that you used to do that. Always phrasing in the past tense. Going through my notes here. Once we do that, I have a habit of always testing my work at the end of the hypnosis session. The very first session with the most dramatic results, I'll ask them to try to want a cigarette. And if they're following the instructions correctly, there's no want there. It's just not there. I may ask them what it's like to even remember how you used to smoke. And again, I'm phrasing it in the past tense. And quite often they will notice it feels distant, it feels far away. And then again, this is after the hypnosis session, conversationally, I'll say, does it feel a little embarrassing? You used to hang on to that habit? And they will nod their head. That's pretty much the essence of it. And it doesn't take a lot of conversation during the hypnosis session to do it, to put that in there. You want to avoid any sort of shame spiral. So there has to be about 80% amused recognition and about 20% of mild embarrassment about this old habit. So use words like silly, amusing, outgrown, but don't use words like wrong or bad or stupid. And sometimes I say stupid. I usually say silly. And there are people you would not do this with, specifically those people who have a lot of shame-based abuse and trauma. because you get them on feeling a little bit embarrassed, and it creates a whole cycle of shame and guilt. So that has to sort of be preempted or dealt with very quickly if you notice it. It is also, let's see, this is also for people who have a relatively good self-esteem. And most people, thank God, do, or we can at least build the self-esteem there. And then, so I'm going to, just a couple recaps. The language you use about this habit is, it's silly, it's amusing, it's slightly embarrassing. You use a little bit of embarrassment, both pre-hypnosis and during the hypnosis, just again, a mild bit of embarrassment. And the testing it afterwards, and the test may not be perfect. You want them to feel free from the habit of smoking, for example. They may not completely connect right away with the feeling of embarrassment, or it feels like something they haven't done in a long, long time. And the nice part about this whole program is, and I've noticed this myself, is once you have this phrase of, I'm not that person anymore, and you have success for it, you can generalize this to anything you want to get rid of. So I did it very successfully with quitting smoking. And then I realized I can do this with all these other habits as well, and it works just as well. So that's an additional benefit. That's the whole model here. I want to, guys, feel free to unmute if you have questions or comments or observations or personal history doing this. Alex.
Just got a query. The establishment of that state of mild amusement, embarrassment about the past. Like like I don't know. The closest equivalence I could think of is like telling someone who's no longer a kid how they used to adore a particular cartoon or something like that on television.
Yeah.
And then they're looking at it and they're thinking, oh my God, I wasn't a fan of this idiocy, was I? And you go, yeah, I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
But if it's just between you and me, and I'm quite happy to just let it be between you, and then try and then attach that feeling to the desired result, which is basically feeling embarrassment about when they were a smoker,
Yeah.
to use your example, so that they
Mhm.
could still feel that thing and say, I know I was a fan of that cartoon, but oh my God, I used to smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Almighty. I mean, I'd rather be a fan of the cartoon.
Yeah. And the process is once you have them solve the problem, so they don't have any, you can't create an urge for it, then you link up this mild sense of embarrassment, and that creates a further detachment from this old
Yeah.
self. Yeah. And
Oh, I
another,
forgot the detachment bit. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
the
They were looking and I think it feels like something so long ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Some other examples you can think of is maybe you went into a public setting and you realized your fly was down, or
Mm,
you were walking around with your socks, with your pant legs tucked in your socks, and you realize, oh,
Fox.
geez, that's a good
Just,
quality of mild embarrassment there. Yeah,
just emerging from a public loo, only to find out that you've still got a Klingon on your battle.
exactly. So, Graham,
Yeah, in fact, yeah, there's a very apt word that the youth of today use called cringe.
yes,
And I'm thinking, and that was the word that you said about the mild embarrassment or the look silly. I think, yeah, well, that's just like what the kids would call a bit cringe nowadays.
yes, I absolutely use that word as well in the hypnosis. A little cringy to remember you used to do that. So, yeah, it's a great observation. All right, guys. Thank you so much. This has gone really well. Because you're here, you're not somewhere else. We're going to do it again next week. I deeply appreciate the work and the time you put in to be here and the sacrifice to get here. So, guys, Thank you
And
very
thank
much.
you for the time you make to make these sessions. And don't forget, Alex, the clocks go forward this weekend, so we're going to be back at 10 o'clock next week.
I
Yeah,
know,
that's right.
I know. I'm so glad I caught us at this time. I just love the one final thought.
Yes.
You can go up to someone who's much, much younger, and then say, for example, 20s, 30s, hell's teeth, even someone who's smoking and they shouldn't be smoking because they're not old enough yet to own tobacco products. And then so look at them and then say, that's something that I would do. Just look at me, old.
Yeah.
Look at this is something an old person would do. So why are you doing it?
Yeah.
That I think would get them to stub out the cigarettes and guaranteed.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
It is, yeah.
Thank you so
Have a great
much.
weekend, David and Alex.
Please take care.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.